Okay, in this tutorial, we are going to be working with Excel formulas to make some calculators. Hopefully a lot of this will be review to you, and you'll have seen these formulas before, hopefully in previous classes, some earlier in this classes. But what I want to focus on in this lesson is somewhat the same thing that we've been thinking about previously, and this is the idea of presenting good data that's really simple and really easy for people to use. So let's say I gave you a problem that had to do with write an income calculator for people in a certain tax bracket. There are a lot of ways in Excel you could answer that problem. But one of the things to think about, and what we're going to cover in this tutorial, is how to do so in a very, very simple way. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make one type of calculator. Again, there are many, many ways to answer that question. But this one is really good because all the person has to do is put a number into this box, and then everything else should fill it out once we get all our formulas in here. Okay, so like I said, so that's kind of our goal. So I'm going to start with 50,000 in there just so you can kind of see the formulas as they build themselves. But you can go ahead and leave that blank if you're starting, whatever works for you. So the idea here is that what we want to do is we want to come up with a yearly total and a monthly total, okay? And so I'm actually going to start in this yearly total box and figure out what I want Excel to do. And you see I have all these things here that are all the ways that my income gets reduced from the gross to what I actually net. Okay, and what I'm actually going to ask Excel to do is sum up all those things and somehow subtract that from this number. Now, if you'll notice, in this entire course, I haven't given you a formula that includes subtraction. There's a reason for that, but the simple one is, without going into too much detail, it's usually easier to use negative numbers in the sum function, which is what we're going to do here. So all I want to do here is type a formula that's going to sum all those things together. All right, so that's going to be equals the sum of B3, that's that first one, to B11. All right, so this would seem like it would make sense. That's what we're going to do. Actually, in this particular case, we may want to look at a different number, a taxable income number, but we'll revisit that in a second. For right now, let's say that this is what we're going to do. Okay? So then, obviously right now, we have nothing in here. It would just sum all these, and our answer would be 50,000. How do you get a monthly total from that? Fairly simple. We want to divide that number by 12. So what I don't want you to do is this. Don't look at the straight number in a cell and write a formula to calculate that. You always want to use a reference because we expect this number next to yearly total to change. And I don't want to have to change the monthly total formula every time. So the reference here is cell B12 divided by 12 because there are 12 months in the year, right? So that's our monthly total. Fantastic. All right. So as we build these, let's somewhat see how this formula changes. And now I am going to go ahead and make one slight change here and say that instead of summing all of the, that's okay. All right. So taxable income. Very simple. We're going to say we use the standard deduction. Minus $6,300, okay? So that's B3 minus 6,300. Fantastic. You see we have a problem here. That's why I was going to address. We'll get back to that at the end. Federal tax is always 15% on the first $37,500. As you've seen here, this income calculator only works if your total income is between $37,500 and $98,550 and you're filing single. You can make a different one if your situation is different. That's what we're working with for this moment. Okay, so what we want to do is figure out what 15% of 37,500 is. So we could say equals 15 or 0.15 times 37,500. That's just going to give us a number. Unfortunately, like I said, this is a sum column. So the better thing to do is we want to multiply, we want to make this negative, right? And we're going to do that same thing for most of the formulas. Okay. So in this particular case, with the 25% on the remaining income, we also want to make that negative. So here we go. We're going to get a negative 0.25 times whatever the number is in our taxable income, which is B4, right? Minus how much? Well, the part that's already been taxed at 15%, which is 37,500. All right. And there we go. That's our tax in the remaining amount. It's a negative number. This is adding correctly. Same thing, state income tax. There's a lot of complicated ways to calculate this. This varies widely by states depending on where you live. If you're in Texas, you can leave this box blank. We're going to say this is 3%, and we're just going to calculate it directly out of taxable income. So again, a negative 0.03 times whatever is in B4. And be really sure you're using your references here. Okay. Again, for simplicity's sake, your FICA and your Social Security is the formula is a little complicated, but let's just go ahead and say it's 6.2 of your taxable income. So negative 0.062 times whatever is in B4. And I'm just going to finish these out here. So negative 0.0145, that's Medicare times whatever is in B4. And here I have a 12.5% contribution to retirement. If you have a different number, be sure to put in a different number and then change this accordingly. Make sure your label is correct, whatever it is. But let's say I'm quite generously putting 12.5% in retirement. And in this case, I'm actually want to take that out pre-tax. So let's say 12.5% of the 50,000. Now that would also reduce your taxable income. Don't worry too much about that. So again, negative 0.125, that's 12.5% times, and again, let's use the quantity in B3. So let's say we were doing this pre-tax. So that's okay. And let's do the same thing with our savings. Let's say we're doing 6 2/3%. Sorry, forgot to make that negative. And we want to, again, try and take that out pre-tax. So ignoring the complications that would happen with that. We're trying to get ourselves a really good estimate here. Okay. So you see the problem here. These formulas tend to be working, and they tend to be working pretty well. If I change this number, all the rest of these numbers change. And that's what we want to have happen. However, this number is much too large because it's adding our taxable income as a part of this plus our total gross income. And I wish we made that much money, but sadly we don't. So I'm going to change this back to 50,000 so it looks like what it was earlier. So basically we need our sum formula for the yearly total of this formula to exclude the taxable income. All right. And this is a really quick fix. We say B3, comma, and then B5 to B11. So that's going to add up B3 and then all the numbers in B5 to B11. Hit enter. There you go. There's your yearly total. There it is divided by 12. That's your monthly total. And the beautiful part of this calculator is as long as you leave all these formulas in here and you've added them all correctly, and all you need to change is this number, and everything else updates. All right. I want you to be really conscious of the beauty of simplicity whenever you are making things like this. You're making a calculator for your business and calculating employee wages and utility bills and all those things. Do your best to make the job easy on yourself. Set up a good calculator so all you need to do is input a few numbers. One is ideal, and then you can go from there. All right, I do want to point out one final limitation of this calculator. This does not work if you have numbers smaller than 37,500. Okay, so let's go ahead and put 20,000 in here. Okay, and that's because this formula subtracts from 37,500 and then makes that number negative, And so a negative number times a negative number is in fact a positive number, and you will vastly overestimate. If you want to calculate an income less than 37,500, you need to delete this formula. So the formula in cell B6. Okay. It'll actually work for numbers over 90,851. It just won't properly take out tax. If you want to do that, you could add another line and then modify this formula a bit to make sure that worked, because the tax bracket over there is currently not included. But this is going to work out pretty well and give you a really good estimate about what your monthly total should be if you're making the number here and that number is somewhere in this range. All right, that's it for this one.